Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin in 2008. Over the years, it has gained millions of followers all around the world. Curious to uncover Bitcoin's turbulent decade-long history and find out how it came to be as world-famous as it is today? Then keep watching. While Bitcoin did not exist until the late 2000s, its origins trace back to a few decades ago, all the way to the year 1982. That's when computer scientist David Chaum first proposed the concept of e-cash. Concerned with privacy in the digital world, he published a paper called Blind Signatures for Untraceable Payments. In it, he discussed a new form of cryptography that could allow for an automated and anonymous payment system. Excited by his idea, David tried to put it into practical use in 1990 by creating DigiCash, a company designed to create a safe online currency. His reputation as a brilliant mind attracted both employees and venture capital alike, but the product never caught on, and by the late 90s, DigiCash had gone bankrupt. Still, David had opened the floodgates for others with similar ambitions, and in 1998, two novel cryptocurrency ideas emerged. First, computer engineer Wei Dai released an essay detailing his idea for his B-Money cryptocurrency, and not much later, computer scientist Nick Szabo put out a similar proposal for BitGold. Both men wanted to create something that did not need a third party to create or manage their currencies, but unfortunately, neither of their proposals came to fruition. For over 2 decades, predecessors had tried and failed to launch a successful cryptocurrency. But then, in 2008, Bitcoin arrived on the scene. In August of that year, a man named Satoshi Nakamoto began an email exchange with Wei Dai, the creator of B-Money. One of the messages read, "I was very interested to read your B-Money page. I'm getting ready to release a paper that expands on your ideas into a complete working system. Adam Back noticed the similarities and pointed me to your site." 2 months later, a white paper was published. Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It described Bitcoin as an electronic payment system based on cryptographic proof instead of trust. This meant that the system was fully peer-to-peer, allowing any two willing parties to transact directly with each other without the need for a trusted third party like a bank. The white paper's writer believed Bitcoin could positively transform the way we use money by ending our reliance on inflationary fiat currencies and central banks. That writer was, of course, Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin's creator. Now, who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Well, his name is merely a pseudonym, and who he really is remains a mystery to this day. Doubting that one single person could create something as comprehensive as the Bitcoin network, many have begun to wonder whether he's even a he, or perhaps rather a group or a company. Still, others have floated the possibility of it being one person, and there are plenty of theories as to who that one single person could be. So far, none have been verified though. Just a few days into 2009, the first ever block of Bitcoins was mined, called the Genesis block. It famously included a Times article titled, "Chancellor on Brink of Second Bailout for Banks." This has led many to believe that Bitcoin was created as a direct response to the unethical behavior of the traditional banking sector in the run-up to the 2008 financial crisis. Then, on January 12th, the first ever Bitcoin transaction occurred as Nakamoto sent 10 Bitcoins to noted computer scientist Hal Finney. Hal was extremely active in the early Bitcoin space. He was one of the earliest responders to Satoshi's initial posts, and he even helped him fix some bugs in Bitcoin's initial code. In one of his now infamous posts, Hal discusses Bitcoin's value potential if it were to become the world's dominant payment system. As an amusing thought experiment, imagine that Bitcoin is successful and becomes the dominant payment system in use throughout the world. Then the total value of the currency should be equal to the total value of all wealth in the world. Current estimates of total worldwide household wealth that I have found range from $100 trillion to $300 trillion. With 20 million coins, that gives each coin a value of about $10 million. At the time, however, Bitcoin still had a long way to go before being accepted as payment, let alone being the world's dominant payment system. In fact, at this point, it had not even been used to make a purchase yet. That changed in May 2010 when Florida-based programmer Laszlo Hanyecz sent 10,000 BTC to another early Bitcoin enthusiast in exchange for 2 Papa John's pizzas. Those days, a single Bitcoin was worth a fraction of a penny, and the 2 pizzas cost Laszlo $25. There was still no official method for buying and selling goods and services with Bitcoin, so using it to pay for something usually required some bartering over the internet. But with the purchase made, more and more early enthusiasts began to see potential in it, and a couple of months later, Bitcoin's value finally broke the penny threshold. The 10,000 Bitcoins Laszlo paid for the 2 pizzas currently have a value of nearly $500 million. This gives him the bragging rights for eating the most expensive meal on Earth. And while it's perhaps not too much consolation, thanks to his purchase, Bitcoin fans fondly refer to May 22nd as Bitcoin Pizza Day. After steadily gaining in value, a major milestone occurred in February of 2011. 1 Bitcoin was worth $1 for the very first time. Bitcoin began receiving more and more press, both good and bad, and the publicity got people talking. By June, 1 coin was worth over $30, but soon after, it crashed back to about $10. Still, it was becoming a more well-known entity and interest in the cryptocurrency grew. By April of 2012, it crossed the $100 threshold, and the next year, it passed the value of $1,000 for the first time. Then it stalled for a while, until it eventually came tumbling down. A few things had happened, but Mt. Gox's bankruptcy was a key factor in Bitcoin's crash. Mt. Gox was a Tokyo-based Bitcoin exchange, and at the time, it was the largest exchange in cryptocurrency. It held over 850,000 Bitcoins from thousands of users. And at one time, it was processing over 65,000 transactions daily. But by 2014, it was all gone. It began in February of that year. First, Mt. Gox stopped Bitcoin withdrawals. A few weeks later, trading was halted too. As it turned out, the exchange was being hacked for years, and overall hackers had stolen nearly all coins. The company was insolvent, and it quickly filed for bankruptcy protection. The security issues that had been plaguing Mt. Gox for years had finally become its downfall, and it seemed like it was taking Bitcoin down with it. After Mt. Gox's bankruptcy, Bitcoin spent the next 3 years desperately trying to claw its way back up, and in 2017, it finally reached and passed the $1,000 mark again. It only kept ascending from there on, and by October, that number had gone up to $6,000. For the remainder of 2017, Bitcoin was on an impressive upswing, and it ended the year by hitting a peak of $19,783. By now, Bitcoin was the talk of the town, and while some were suspicious as to why it was suddenly doing so well, many others began chasing the trend as the price just kept rising. The mania was real, and it seemed like there was no stopping anymore. Some even went as far as to borrow money to get in on the action, and numerous mortgages were taken out to buy more coins. But unsurprisingly, that crazy growth couldn't continue forever, and in the following months, Bitcoin crashed to $3,200 and recorded a 625% loss. Many people who had only recently joined the crypto world were deeply disappointed. For the next couple of years, Bitcoin's value hovered in the $3,000 range, and the general public seemed to want to move on and forget. For many Bitcoin maximalists, however, the fun was only getting started, and after 3 long years of waiting, Bitcoin's next boom finally began at the end of 2020. At the time, COVID had just left a significant footprint on the global economy, and while all cryptocurrencies crashed in March of 2020, it eventually seemed like COVID actually boosted the cryptocurrency space. Fearing that inflation would spiral due to continued government stimulus, investors began seeing Bitcoin as an inflationary hedge. Due to COVID, governments across the world were injecting trillions of dollars into their economies. But this money, of course, had to come from somewhere, and to meet stimulus requirements, most countries started printing more and more money. By June 2020, global stimulus action had surpassed $10 trillion, and many feared that the crazy amount of money being printed would lead to a massive drop in its value. However, this issue of money printing leading to a decrease in value is not a problem that Bitcoin would ever have, because in contrast to regular fiat money, Bitcoin has a fixed total supply of 21 million coins. But its potential as an inflationary hedge wasn't the only reason why interest in Bitcoin kept growing. And while some investors indeed thought of it as a safe haven, many others were interested in the massive gains they could obtain due to its volatile nature, especially in contrast to the low returns from government bonds and stock trading. In addition, mainstream companies accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment only further boosted its value, and by the end of 2020, Bitcoin had reached an all-time high of nearly $29,000. Things were looking great, but a bumpy ride laid ahead. 2021 was arguably the best and most volatile year in the history of cryptocurrency. Both Bitcoin and other altcoins did extremely well, and increasingly more companies now accept them as payment. In January, Bitcoin touched $40,000 for the first time, and after Elon Musk tweeted that anyone could buy a Tesla using Bitcoin, there was no stopping. Prices jumped and recorded a new all-time high of $64,829 on April 14th. And once again, people were ecstatic and rushed to take out loans and put all their money into Bitcoin. But also, once again, the upward swing wouldn't last forever. China began an unprecedented crackdown on both Bitcoin mining and trading. And to add fuel to the fire, the once so optimistic Elon Musk now tweeted that Tesla would not accept payments in Bitcoins anymore until its environmental concerns were fixed. In a matter of days, Bitcoin crashed by nearly 50%, and the subsequent months looked dire. But then, a new upward swing began, and on November 5th, Bitcoin reached an all-time high price of $68,521. While it has since dropped drastically again, only the future can tell what 2022 has in store for us. What is certain, though, is that Bitcoin has come a long way from its first days of inception. It has sparked a phenomenon that could rewire the entire global financial network, and where once only die-hard crypto fans knew and talked about it, today the whole world knows about Bitcoin. Whether they like it or not, Bitcoin is everywhere, and El Salvador even began using it as legal tender. One major issue that many crypto fans fear is that Bitcoin will simply become centralized and regulated, which would drastically defeat its whole purpose. Others, however, claim that it has always been the Grandmaster plan, and they believe that no one other than the CIA was behind Bitcoin's creation. To this day, people continue to fervently try and uncover Satoshi Nakamoto's identity, but at a time in which it is hard to be anonymous, he has remained a ghost. What's also interesting is that there are about 1 million Bitcoins that were mined in Bitcoin's first year and that have never been used. Today, those coins are worth about $50 billion, and many believe that the coins are controlled by Nakamoto, and only Nakamoto. This would potentially make him one of the 30 richest people in the world. So, with this much money on the line, whether or not Nakamoto will stay a ghost forever remains to be awaited. Are there any important things you think are missing in this video? Share it in the comments, and make sure to check out our channel if you'd like to see more inspiring business videos.